The survey's done and the results are in. Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone. How do you like my shirt? It was so cold and gloomy today that I just had to do something to brighten things up. So I thought of two of my favorite things: tropical weather and motorcycles. All right, the results are in. I'm going to be closing out the survey, but I do have some results. And this survey didn't get a lot of responses, a little over 100, but I think that that is enough to get an idea of what you guys are thinking out there. So I'm going to tell you some of the results statistically. And some of them are as expected. Others may come as a surprise to you, as they did to me. So the first question was, how satisfied are you with Uber's rating system? Now this was a funny one because it was all across the board. First of all, hardly anyone was very satisfied. We had 1% was very satisfied. 16% was satisfied. And now the biggest majority was spread out almost evenly over neither satisfied or dissatisfied, dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. We got 27, 29, and 25%. I'm rounding these, so if you're adding up, you might say, well, Mark, that's only 98%. Yeah, because some of these say 29.59% and so on. But that's saying that roughly 80% of you are at neutral or below. That doesn't speak well to, actually even more than that, that doesn't speak well to the satisfaction that you have with the rating system. I guess we should have another survey to find out what would you do to fix it. Or maybe you could just leave that down below. Next question. How often do your riders tip? The majority of you fell into the sometimes and rarely category, which I think didn't surprise me. Sometimes 49% of you said you get tipped sometimes. 43% said rarely. So that encompasses almost everybody. That's 92% of you. We got another 5% that said usually, 1% that said always, and only 2% of you say you never get tipped. So I think that bodes pretty well for tipping. I would like to see that go up into the usually category, but 49% saying sometimes is not too bad. Half of you get tipped. Sometimes, what does that mean? You know, half the time? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. That's the trouble with putting together a survey like this. It's just hard to really super duper pinpoint things when you have to respond from predetermined answers, right? Question 3 says, how helpful have you found the Uber support system to be in solving your driver issues? This is one of the biggest surprises to me, in that 18% of you said extremely helpful or very helpful. Actually, only 2% said extremely, but 16% of you said very helpful. And that left the rest of you somewhat not so helpful and not helpful at all. How much? 21% said not helpful at all. So 1/5 of you said, no, they're not helping me. And another quarter of you, 26%, said not so helpful. And 34 is the biggest category, somewhat helpful. So the majority of you said they are somewhat helpful and below. Only 18% of you said they are very helpful and extremely helpful. Question 4 asked, while waiting for your rider, do you cancel as soon as you're allowed? This was another one that really surprised me. This is one I might want to dig into. 17% of you, that's about a sixth, said yes, I leave after 5 minutes regardless of the circumstances. So that means whether you got notified, they called you, you can see them running from the door to your car, 5 minutes hits, you're out of there. That one surprised me, that a full 17% of you said that. 41% said yes, but only if I don't hear from the rider. That would be the category I would probably fall into. 42% said, I'll wait a little longer based on my gut feeling, which, is not a bad thing. If you are an experienced driver, sometimes you get a feel for things, right? You just kind of know. Now, this one also, I think, plays a lot into circumstances. If you're in a busy metropolitan area and there really is no place to wait, or you're getting the stink eye from the cop who's sitting across the street, why are you waiting around so long? I could see why you'd want to take off. So I understand how circumstances could play into this one. This next one I think is really interesting. I pulled this question directly off the Uber employee survey because I wanted to see how riders felt about it. The question is, I believe that Uber is in a position to succeed over the next 2 years. Almost split down the middle, a little heavier towards the no side. 46% of you said, yes, I feel they'll succeed. 54% said, no, I don't feel they'll succeed. So you could say, if there is that, like we say in polls, that 3 or 4% margin of error, that almost puts it dead even. Yeah, we're still, if you give it 4%, it's even. But I guess 46 to 54 is still starting to lean on that side of no. So drivers are kind of split on whether you think Uber will succeed in the next 2 years. Do riders' ratings influence whether or not you accept a ride? This one, again, is all over the board. 29% of you said, yes, they influence me. 41% said, no, they don't influence me. And 30% said, sometimes. I would fall in the majority there, the 41%. I don't even look at ratings, to be honest with you. I pick them up. If I get the ping, I pick them up. I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't had so many bad experiences. Question 7. Where do you get the most learning and development needed to do your job well? This one did not surprise me at all. I think I could have pegged this one, even though I give a lot of choices. Uber provides learning and development needed. 0. Nobody picked that. I think that speaks volumes. How can you expect a company to survive when you don't provide any training? Now, Uber might say, oh, sure we do. We put out videos or we send out an email now and then. Superficial, right? Says here 0. Only 6% of you said that you learn it from the drivers you meet. That's not a surprise to me either, because how often do you really spend time with drivers? About the only time I can think of is when you're sitting at that airport queue. And if you're like me, I don't like to sit at the airport queue. And if I do, I'm trying to do something productive. I've done videos sitting in that airport queue. Rarely am I out just jawing with other drivers. So 6% doesn't surprise me. These next two are the two biggest, the two big majority. I learned from on-the-job personal experience, which I would have expected, 46%, and I learned from online sources like this channel, 45%. So those encapsulate 91% of where your learning takes place. It's just a school of hard knocks or going online and finding out on your own from other people who are in the trenches with you. Like this channel, like chat rooms, that sort of thing. And then 3% of you said other resources not listed here. I would imagine that would be things like maybe Harry Campbell's book, the Rideshare Guide. I can't imagine any other sources other than, personal experience online or other drivers. I don't know what else there really is. This next one is telling. I see myself driving for Uber in 2 years' time. Only 11% of you said yes with Uber. 5% said yes with a service other than Uber. 43% said yes with Uber as well as others. So 43% of you think, yeah, this will be a mixed bag of nuts. I'll try Uber and Lyft and anything else that might come along. They're still open to driving, but not exclusive. 41% of you said, nope, I'm not going to be driving, which really is in keeping with the statistics that we know exist, right? Most drivers don't last very long past about the first 6 months. So I can't say that was a surprise, but it does tell me that very few of you, only 11%, see themselves driving exclusively with Uber. Regarding surges, which method do you prefer? We only gave 2 choices here. The multiplier or the set bonus rate that they're moving towards. This was overwhelming. 87% of you said that you want to continue to see the multiplier. Only 13% like seeing that $2, $3, $4. That is really interesting too. Now, it could be that maybe, some of you are saying that without having experience because it is not as widespread. But it could also be saying, Uber, what are you doing? What you're doing is not in our best interest. And the last question says, of the following compensation options, which would you most like to see implemented? Hands down, 52% of you, more than half, want to see an increase in time and mileage. That's what most of you want to see. The next most popular is pay drivers a consistent percentage based on what riders pay. In other words, get rid of all this confusing mathematics with time and minutes and mileage and surge and this and that. Just give me 80% or 75% like we agreed to a couple years back. Those are the 2 most, the highly rated answers at 52% and 25%. Increase the time and mileage, or just go back to that flat percentage without all the monkey business. Then we have just a few others tinkering around there. The next one, allow drivers to see destination information before accepting a ride. So although that typically, I worded it poorly, I said compensation option, I should have just said changes. And then the rest were just 1% and 2% answers. Drivers keep 100% of cancellation. Nobody really cared about that. 1%. Add automatic tipping to eats. Nobody cared about that. 2%. I would love to see a legitimate reservation system. If I could plan my week or even my day, knowing that I have this person to pick up at the airport, I have this person to take to church, I have this person to pick up at the bar, take this person to the ball game, my life would be so much easier. Now, here is the big question. What do we do with this? It's fun to talk about it, but if you're going to leave any comment on this video, I want you to tell me, what should we do with this information? Because there are some things we have to know. And one of those is, this is not by any means a scientific survey. This is a survey of a very specific group of people. You. People who are probably more interested than the average driver. They're probably people who are more active, people of a particular slant, just because of the fact that you're watching this channel. So the people who answer this are viewers of this channel. So it is a very specific group. It's also a very, very small sampling. This is basically 100 people. Because of the way which I won't get into, because of the way I took the survey and the service I used, it is a sampling of 100 people. Now, the reason that I say, what should we do with it? Do we send it to the media? What media outlets do we send it to? Will they ignore just 100 answers? Not if you get it in the hands of the right reporter or the right organization. Let me tell you how news organizations work. Let's say, I don't know, somebody's protesting the Grape Growers Association. If a reporter doesn't like what the grape growers are doing, and let's say that 8 people show up to protest and they're walking around with their signs, right? They'll get those 8 people grouped up, they'll make it look like that's all you see. So for all you know, there's 108, but you're only seeing one little group. And they will say, angry consumers were protesting at the Grape Growers Association today. Here's what they were angry about. And then they'll interview 3 of the 8. Now, if they're in alignment with the Grape Growers Association, here's how the reporter will handle it. A protest was organized today, but only 8 people were interested enough to show up. And that's exactly what we see in the news today. So it doesn't matter if this is compiled scientifically. It doesn't matter if it's only 100-person sampling. What matters is, does the news organization side with drivers or do they side with Uber? And I think that would make the biggest impact. It's a luck of the draw these days. So you can tell that I'm not a big fan, and you've heard this throughout my videos. I'm not a big fan of news today. I grew up in a time when I think the news organizations were far more straightforward, far more honest. They would dig deep into stories. You know, the stuff that Richard Nixon did during Watergate, those guys dug in. Today, I think they might dig, they might not, depending whether they like the president or not. So anyway, what do you think I should do with this? Should we compile a press release? If we do, what question would you focus on? Or would you like me to take one of these questions and create a second survey and go a little deeper to really find out what drivers think? So if we move forward with this, we have a little more bite. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Typically, I'm not one to kick the hornet nest, you know, but I just think this is kind of an interesting experiment, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. So that's it for today, everybody. I hope that you are enjoying a bright, sunny, warm January. There is a weather advisory out for tonight, freezing rain. So it's just not fun to be in Wisconsin tonight. Well, I hope it's fun for you, everyone. As always, I encourage you to leave your comments down below. Please like and share the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm Mark with Uber Hints.